Goa is a small Indian state of 3,700 square kilometers. It is famous for its beaches that attract tourists from around the world. It is situated in the Konkan region on the west coast of India between Maharashtra and Karnataka. The Arabian Sea borders the state in the west, and a chain of mountains called the Western Ghats borders it in the east. The area between the Ghats and the sea is only 40 kilometers wide, and it is mostly hilly with large valleys. The monsoon rains between June and September, with an average rainfall of 3,000 millimeters, create a semi-tropical flora with moist, deciduous forests in the Western Ghats and the hills all the way to the coast. Three major rivers, the Chapora, Mandovi, and Zuari, that originate from the Ghats, flow to the sea and create large estuaries. Most of the wetland and grassland birding sites of Goa are related to the basins of these rivers. The only places to find waders, gulls and terns along the coastline are in the mouth of the Chapora River near Morjim Beach and the mouth of the Zuari River near Agasain. In these places, the sea creates large mudflats that are good feeding grounds for birds at low tide. At high tide, most waders fly to other feeding grounds further upriver, while gulls and terns fly out to sea. Migration of shorebirds in Goa starts in July. First to arrive are lesser sand and Kentish plovers. By August, ruddy turnstones and other waders can be seen in small numbers together with little and common terns, especially during monsoon storms. These terns are usually seen together with the resident greater and lesser crested terns. Saunders tern is possible, but this bird can only be separated from little tern in the breeding season. In the monsoon, the sea brings to shore tons of debris, mostly driftwood and some garbage. The birds use this debris to find shelter from the wind and from stray dogs. By September, nearly all the waders that pass through all winter in Goa have arrived. Sand and Kentish plovers are the most common waders, and in numbers can reach over 100. Gull-billed terns are growing in numbers. They will stay and winter in Goa, while Caspian and sandwich terns will migrate further. Caspian and lesser black-backed gulls, with their many subspecies, and a few Pallas's gulls, may stay for winter, but most will migrate further. By October, brown-headed gulls arrive. By now they're in winter plumage and their heads are white. This gull breeds in Ladakh and Central Asia, and winters in India. In Goa, it is the most common bird of the shore, and can sometimes be seen in thousands in Chapora estuary. It leaves Goa in May. By then, many of these gulls change their head plumage to brown. The south side of Morjim Beach that borders the Chapora River has been declared an olive ridley sea turtle nesting site. There are not many turtle nests on this beach, but this declaration has stopped development and leaves some space for birds. A forest of casuarina trees was planted behind the turtle nesting site. This forest is now a major picnic spot for locals. People that walk on the beach disturb the birds, and worse are the stray dogs that are constantly chasing the birds. Seabirds that are blown onto shore in storms and try to rest on the beach have no chance against these dogs. Fortunately, the river created an island in the estuary only a few hundred meters from Morjim Beach. This island is covered with water during high tide, and therefore trees do not take root on it. Only odd birdwatchers and local people from Chapora village who collect shells in the shallow water when the tide is at its lowest sometimes land on this island. This is a perfect, undisturbed place for gulls and terns that sometimes concentrate there in their thousands. Pollution and garbage are a major problem on the beaches of Goa. Many attempts to clean the beaches have failed. Recently, a contract was given to a company from Karnataka that seems to handle the problem fairly well. They place garbage containers everywhere and have teams on every declared beach. The beaches are now relatively clean. Since a bridge was constructed on the Chapora River near Silim in 2002, Pernem district has become very popular with tourists, and birds on Morjim Beach have declined. The best site for coastal birds in Goa is now the beach between Agasaim and Tiswadi, near Zuari Bridge. This beach is good only at low tide when its mudflats are exposed. Only a few fishermen use this beach and disturbance to birds is minimal. These beaches are the best places in Goa for vagrants. Crab plover, Indian skimmer and great knot are some of the stragglers that have been seen here. Greater flamingo is a vagrant in Goa. An immature individual bird appeared on Pernem Beach a little north of Morjim in late November 2017. This bird was not afraid at all of people and was a great entertainment to the tourists on the beach. It stayed on that beach for about a month and was seen later in other wetlands in the state. coastline in South Goa is mostly hilly with small beaches not suitable for waterbirds. Very high cliffs rise straight from the sea and continue all the way to the Western Ghats. These hills are covered with forests that stretch all the way to the sea. Here is the domain of the white-bellied sea eagle that nests in these forests and hunts fish and snakes in the sea. This enormous grey and white raptor that soars with wings held in a strong V-shape is common in Southeast Asia and Australia, and India is the most westerly part of its distribution. It builds its nests in trees in coastal forests. It usually uses the same nest year after year. It starts its breeding activity in October. By December, 1 or 2 chicks can be seen in the nest. By February, they can be seen flying. Immature birds have brown plumage that is gradually replaced by white. The Mandovi River is the largest river in Goa. It enters Goa's Western Ghats from Karnataka under the name Madey River. When it reaches the flatland, it changes its name to Mandovi. The river creates a huge estuary, which includes Divar and Chorao Islands, wetlands around Salvador de Mundo, Panjim City and Santa Cruz. Kumbarjwa Canal, that connects the Mandovi River with Zuari River, was dug by the Portuguese about 200 years ago and connects Nura Wetlands and Karambolim Dado to this brackish water wetland complex. This complex of wetlands is directly influenced by the sea tide, and they are connected to each other by man-made check dams to control the level of the water. The water is saline, and when the level is low, it creates good mudflats for waders. Parts of these wetlands are covered by mangrove forest. The biggest forest is in Dr. Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary on the west side of Chorao Island. Some islands, like those on Chapora River near Sulim, and new islands that emerged after constructing 3 bridges on the Mandovi River near Panjim, are nearly inaccessible for people and are covered with natural mangrove forest. It is possible to explore the rivers of Goa by boat. From Chapora village, it's possible to hire a boat and sail upstream. Chapora River is different from the Mandovi River and flows in a more hilly area. This trip is very pleasant as there is no commercial shipping, unlike on the Mandovi River. The boat passes by a fleet of vessels that dredge sand from the bottom of the river. More popular with birders is a boat trip organised in season on the Zuari River and Kumbarjwa Canal. This trip leaves from Kortalim Jetty near Zuari Bridge. The trip is especially designed for birds and crocodile watching, and it is very popular with Indian bird photographers, as from the boat they can get very close to the birds. Birders on this boat trip are mostly after 2 kinds of kingfisher: black-capped, that is becoming rarer every year and has disappeared completely from all known sites north of the Mandovi River, and collared kingfisher, which is a true mangrove species. The collared kingfishers of Goa belong to a subspecies called Vidali, which is rare and lives only in mangrove forests on the west coast of India. Their residents nest in holes in mangrove trees. Crocodiles can be seen basking in the sun on the banks of the canals. Freshwater lakes exist in Goa mostly in the form of village tanks. Nearly every old village has a water tank. Unfortunately, this bird habitat has been degraded more than any other by beautification projects. Many of the old tanks, like the one in Anjuna, had small roosting and breeding colonies of herons and cormorants. Their dikes were of mud, and many birds used them for feeding and nesting. Many of these tanks have replaced their muddy dikes with concrete, not leaving space for birds and animals to reach the water, and causing their avifauna to disappear. There are a few large lakes that support large numbers of ducks and other water birds in winter. Karambolim and Batim lakes in Tiswadi district, and 5 large tanks near Kortorim in Salsette district, near the Zuari river, not far from Margao. These lakes and the areas near them are the best places for wetland birding during the winter in Goa. Karambolim Lake is the largest and most famous water tank in Goa. Until the end of the 20th century, it held very large numbers of wintering ducks and other water birds. The ducks mysteriously do not come anymore to this lake for reasons unknown. The lake is protected and the Forest Department is making huge efforts to bring back the birds. These efforts include clearing the water of invading weeds that choke the lake and creating artificial islands for cormorants and herons to nest on. The islands are a success. Cormorants and darters are now breeding there, but the ducks have not returned to Karambolim and prefer other lakes like Batim and Kortorim. Painted stork is a common resident bird in most of India, but in Goa it is a rare visitor. In the winter of 2013, about 200 individuals were seen in different wetlands in Goa. Most of them were in Siulim, where at that time rice was still cultivated in winter. A year later, I saw only 30 individuals, and since then, it is again a rare visitor. The oldest breeding colony of large water birds is in Deccan Factory near Old Goa. The success of this colony is because it is on private land and therefore there is no disturbance for birds. Here is the only place in Goa where I saw painted storks nesting together with herons, egrets, cormorants and darters on a small tree, on an island in an artificial pond next to the national highway. A new colony of breeding large water birds is coming up near Green Hotel, near Mapsa, next to the newly constructed national highway. Probably part of the construction work blocked some waterway and forced the water to reach this level that created islands where the birds are nesting. The breeding colony is very small and covers only a few trees that support about 100 nests. Mostly great egret, little and Indian cormorants and darter. Here there are also many nests of night heron, This bird was breeding in small water ponds like the one in Anjuna and had to abandon their former homes. The Goan cuisine is totally dependent on its wetlands. Being isolated from the rest of India for many years during the Portuguese era, the Goans learned to depend on themselves for their food. Fishing is the main source of protein for most Goans. Fishing takes place in all the wetlands, the sea, the rivers, the estuaries, and even in local ponds. Rice is the main form of agriculture in Goa. The main season for growing rice is in the monsoon. After the first heavy rains in June, when the ground becomes muddy and soaked with water, the local people start to plough their land. Until the middle of the second decade of the 21st century, ploughing was done as it had been for centuries with the help of bulls or buffaloes. Modern machines replaced the old system, and many Hindus have now retired their bulls. Ploughing needs to be done a few times before the fields are ready for planting. When the ploughing is finished, the farmers build small dikes between each field. The dikes are no higher than 30 centimetres and are made from mud that the farmer digs out of the field. The next stage is spreading fertilizers and later seeds. After throwing the seeds, the farmers have to stay in the fields all day to chase away seed-eating birds. Clapping with a wooden stick on a metal plate usually does the job. The clapping continues for about 10 days, in sun or rain, until the seeds root and birds cannot eat them. Scarecrows can be seen in some fields. In many places, people grow rice plants in special nurseries and later plant them by hand one by one. This system was more common when labour from other states was cheap. Now, as labour has become expensive, most Goan farmers prefer to throw the seeds and only fill empty spaces with rice plants they grow in nurseries. It takes about a month from ploughing until the rice starts to grow. Harvesting is done 3 months later, in October or early November. By then, the monsoon season comes to an end. As with ploughing, in harvesting too, machines have now replaced labour. Three birds are associated with rice cultivation in the monsoon. Watercock, cinnamon bittern, and slaty-breasted rail are very hard to find out of the rainy season. But as soon as the rain starts and the grass starts to grow, they are seen and heard everywhere, especially in rice fields where they prefer to build their nests. Low-lying areas where water is too high to cultivate rice during monsoon can sometimes see rice cultivation in the dry season in winter. This is especially true for places that have a large water tank like Karambolim and Kotorim. From the time of ploughing until the rice starts to grow, these places are the best places in the wetlands of Goa for birding. Many migrating birds that are absent in the monsoon come to feed in this habitat. Many different kinds of migrating waders, storks, herons, ducks, raptors, and songbirds can be seen in these places in large numbers. Birders can easily see 80 species of birds in a few hours. Here is also where it is most likely to find vagrants in winter, like the Asian dowitcher and white stork that was seen in Karambolim in November 2017. Unfortunately, winter cultivation of rice is declining in Goa. It has completely disappeared from Siulim wetlands and nearly completely disappeared from Karambolim. A little cultivation is still going on in Santa Cruz, near Panjim. It is still continuing on a large scale only in Kurtorim. Most of my birding in Goa I have done together with 4 other expat birders that live around Anjuna. From monsoon to November, we usually time our birding trips to the wetlands according to the low tide on Agasaim Beach, where we start in the morning. We then go to Nura, Karambulim area and Divar Island. Nura wetland has saline water and it does not dry out all year. It is the best place in Goa for yellow bittern in the monsoon. The village next to the wetlands has some very old houses dating back to the early Portuguese colonial era. Later, in winter, we usually visit Batim Lake, where hundreds of ducks usually winter. Sometimes rare ducks are seen on Batim Lake, such as a fulvous whistling duck I saw among hundreds of lesser whistling ducks in April 2016. Our wetland trips always halt at 12 noon in 7 Barrels Bar on Divar Island. This bar has an excellent view over natural grasslands, and they serve local alcohol called urak that is produced in nearby forests from kaju fruit. Urak is usually served mixed with limca and soda. Some people add green chili and lemon in their drink. At 2 p.m. when the bar is closed, we have lunch in a nearby local restaurant, usually a traditional Goan plate of fish curry rice. Later we take a siesta by the big mango tree near the football ground. We end the day with grassland birding around the tree. In October, the rains stop and it doesn't rain at all until June. The lowland areas of Goa start to dry out and the wetlands gradually turn into grasslands. Most grasslands would naturally be places where rice was cultivated earlier. The best grasslands of Goa are on Divar Island. This island is located in the Mandovi River and can only be reached by ferry. The main ferry points connect the island with Old Goa and Ribandar. Pedestrians and motorbikes travel for free, but four-wheelers have to pay 10 rupees. The church on the top of the hill is one of the oldest churches in Goa and dates back to 1515. The island is surrounded by mangrove, and in some parts there are mangrove forests. In some parts of the island, rice is cultivated in the monsoon, but different kinds of natural grasses cover most of the island. Near the football ground on the west side of the island, on the road to Ribandar Ferry Point, the grass is not covered with water in monsoon, and in August it is possible to find rain quail here. This bird can easily be heard calling, but it is only seldom seen. The area is good for other grassland birds like larks, pipits, and Zitting cisticola. It is also good for raptors. Harriers roost in the grass in winter. The fields near the football ground on Divar Island are popular with birders, and are very good for vagrants like bay-backed shrike and redneck falcon. Some of these birds can be seen perching on the electricity poles near to the road. Another good grassland used to be in Saligao and Baga fields. In the beginning of this century, when birding in Goa was on top of the list of travelling international birders, Hotel Beira Mar in Baga was a meeting place for birders, where you could drink a beer and watch the wetlands and grasslands of Baga from the balcony of the hotel's swimming pool in the afternoon. A total of 185 species of birds were recorded from that balcony. Saligao fields were very good for raptors. On an average day in winter, I could count 20 eagles. Today, you would be lucky if you see any. In recent years, there has been a shift in agricultural practice in winter in Goa, and farmers are encouraged to grow vegetables and legumes. Some people suggest that this is the reason for the raptors declining, as Saligao is a leading place for this kind of winter cultivation. Divar Island, too, has seen a massive raptor decline. The harrier roost that used to have 25 birds now holds only about 4. From September to November, the grasslands of Goa see passage migrants that cross the Indian Ocean and winter in Africa. Eurasian cuckoo usually arrives in September, Eurasian roller follows in October, and Amur falcon in late November, early December. These birds stop in Goa for a short time to feed and prepare for the long crossing of the Indian Ocean. By April and May, the hot season in Goa, most wetlands dry or shrink and most of the grass is burnt by farmers. Black drongos are usually attracted to these fires, chasing escaping insects. This is a good time to look for birds like ruddy-breasted crake and greater painted snipe. These birds are dependent on the few local wetlands that survive. Spring migration is limited in Goa. There are not many species seen, but some birds like black-tailed godwit and lesser whistling ducks are migrating in very large numbers. Long-toed stint is a vagrant that is more likely to be seen during spring migration. Some wetlands, like Shirgao near Asonora, are covered with water year-round. These places see more birds as other wetlands dry. Red avadavat and streaked weaver, two birds that are associated with this kind of habitat, have started to colonize these wetlands. These birds were never seen in Goa before 2012. Streaked weaver is now breeding in a few of these wetlands. Unlike Bayer weaver, that nests in different habitats and its nests in Goa can be seen on coconut trees in monsoon, streaked weaver nests only in grasses. While the forested area in Goa has increased in the last 30 years, the wetlands and grasslands have declined sharply, especially in the last decade. Development on the coastline reduced sharply the number of waders on the beaches. Changes in systems of agriculture and of water management and beautification of water tanks have reduced the numbers of birds in many of the inner wetlands. Let us hope that future development will take into account bird habitats and that the government will protect some of its wetlands and grasslands, like the new breeding colony near Mapsa, as it protects the forests of the Western Ghats.